Lifestyle medicine has multiple foundations on which it's based. They range from regular exercise to proper nutrition of a whole foods plant-based diet. Another foundation is ensuring the absence of alcohol and tobacco, proper ways to manage stress. This can range anything from yoga to, mindful meditation, etc. Healthy relationships is also a critical foundation of lifestyle medicine, not only with those around you, but the self that you have also, maintaining proper self relationship. So, amongst all the many foundations, there's also sleep. To me, sleep seems to be the most critical foundation. To me, it's one of the hardest foundations in order for me to grasp. That's why I'm going to be looking at sleep and how it affects our cognitive functioning abilities. Um, and to do this, I'm going to really kind of dive into what cognitive function actually means, what it means to have proper sleep, or just the general understanding of proper sleep, kind of discuss how this all ties together. In a little more detail, I would like to discuss, who is most affected by lack of sleep, and who's at greatest risk of cognitive decline due to the lack of sleep. Um, it's good to discuss. We're going to try and discuss signs and symptoms associated with lack of sleep. I think we'll be able to bring in some good data and tables to kind of look at a little bit of evidence correlating these issues that arise from lack of sleep. And then, of course, at the very end, it's going to be vital that I tie in a little bit of information to kind of try and help us all attain and continue to achieve proper cognitive restorative sleep patterns. So to kind of grasp what cognitive function really means, we can go to the freedictionary.com's website, and their definition states, an intellectual process by which one becomes aware of, perceives, or comprehends ideas is known as cognitive function. It also involves all aspects of perception, thinking, reasoning, and remembering. So furthermore, we need to parallel this definition with the definition of what proper sleep actually means. On average, we find that most human beings need 7 to 9 hours of consecutive nightly regular sleep, with those who are younger in age tending to need a bit more sleep than those who are older, as the younger aged people tend to be going through more energy intensive processes, hormonal changes, etc. So based on these noted definitions of sleep and cognitive function alike, we can begin to start looking into and discussing many studies which are out there which correlate the two. So a neuroscientist named Jeff Eliff gave a great TED Talk covering his research into sleep's physiological effects. He discussed the effects which tend to help or hurt the brain. In specific, he really dove into ways in which we sleep, and once we sleep, how our brains go into somewhat of a cleaning mode. During this cleaning slash maintenance mode, our brains tend to leach out waste materials, which is then absorbed by the CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, which floats around our brain in a way, um, and then it takes these waste materials and dumps it into the blood where it's removed from the brain. It also brings in vital nutrients to the brain. And so once again, Jeff's discussion during this TED Talk was really based on the fact that without this sleep mode, our brain's ability to function in a physiological proper way is truly dampened. Thus, we tend to see a lack of cognitive function, aka just a simple decline in cognitive function. Our thinking is, blurred. Our comprehension is at best subpar. So his discussion was really great on this topic and how this activity only happens during sleep. For more specific numbers on the subject, we can look at a rapid publication published by multiple PhDs on the cumulative cost of additional wakefulness. In this publication, they really target home and target the numbers and of chronic restriction of sleep. They say that regular restriction of sleep or lack of sleep to a minimum of 6 hours or less per night tends to produce a cognitive performance deficit, which is equivalent to up to 2 nights of total sleep deprivation. Therefore, they're really kind of targeting and defining what the beginnings of sleep deficit really feels and looks like. To me, I find being able to put this scenario into some numbers was fascinating. So I wanted to turn to a more specific group of people to look at cognitive function and sleep. So I chose to turn and look at an article published by the U.S. National Library of Medicine, which is titled Effects of Sleep Deprivation on Cognitive and Physical Performance in University Students. Being a university student myself, I found this completely fascinating. I have personally experienced many functional and cognitive declines due to lack of sleep. Because this particular study was performed over a 24-hour period with a controlled method of two groups of students, one being sleep deprived and one being unsleep deprived, the final outcomes were a little bit more towards the sleep deprivation having a significant effect on blood pressure increase and reaction time in students. This was kind of a play on seeing how students perform with a simple one-nighter here and there. While the cognitive decline wasn't the largest factor, the reaction rate was definitely increased, and thus the physical reaction to a 24-hour, all-nighter kind of scenario was actually a physical decline more than it was cognitive. However, when this study was compared to a Scientific Reports journal article, which went over research by a few different scientists who were looking into circadian rhythm, they were able to notice a greater cognitive change as well as circadian rhythm change. This goes beyond the 24-hour period and shows definite mental chemical changes taking place as sleep deprivation becomes more of the norm, more than just a one-nighter per se, as mentioned before. Not only did they notice just this, but they also noted that as unregulated sleep became the norm, homeostatic return to circadian rhythm was more difficult. This study also allowed us to think in the way that we thought about the college students in the previous study. However, we are thinking more of people who don't follow a typical circadian rhythm sleep cycle. This is something that goes further into the connection between sleep and cognitive function. It kind of warrants a discussion and a question of what kind of cognitive functioning disabilities or issues are people facing who don't get just a regular circadian rhythm of sleep beyond just the typical 8-hour issue. Herein, we can kind of begin to discuss another Scientific Reports journal article. This one really focused on daily circadian misalignment and how it impairs human cognitive performance, specifically on tasks. What we note with this study that correlated sleep and cognitive function is that it was done over a 2-week period, and it was specifically targeted at those who were getting the normal, regular circadian rhythmic sleep, staying in line with that, and those who were thrown off by shift work or by other factors which caused inability to maintain standard circadian alignment. With this study, we did note cognitive function disability and ways in which the lack of proper regular rhythmic, so to speak, sleep, um, how that caused greater cognitive decline. And in specific, motor function decline, as well as just simple cognitive awareness and perception and thinking. While it seems pretty logical to simple thought, the way in which lack of sleep correlates to decline in cognitive function, there is compounding endless evidence out there that's being compiled on the subject. Um, like mentioned before, some research is very simple, very short time period, some is longer duration. However, all seem to note that as duration of sleep deprivation increases, so does decline of cognitive function. And furthermore, when sleep deprivation becomes the norm, it becomes even harder to get ourselves back into a homeostatic circadian rhythmic sleep, which is essential to physiological care and maintenance of our brain, of our nervous system, and therefore our cognitive functioning abilities. While always staying on a sleep schedule and getting a regular 8 hours of sleep a night is not always doable. It is essential that we hold priority of sleep to a very high standard. This is what keeps our body in line. This is what keeps our mental abilities sharp and obviously our cognitive functions performing properly. So while many of us struggle to get sleep, there are ways to increase the likelihood of proper healthy sleep that is restorative to our function. These ways can begin simply with really trying to keep a consistent bedtime, regardless of what life throws at you. Um, it's it's essential to go to bed sleepy, so make sure we have a fulfilled day. It's also wonderful to set the setting for your bedroom. Make sure you don't have any extreme bright lights. Make sure the sounds are dampened, etc. It's also nice to create a bedtime routine which we can follow in order to help us wind down and get ready for a night of restful, peaceful sleep. So, to reiterate, in order to have proper cognitive function, aka have pure awareness, complete comprehension, clear perception, maximum thinking ability, the ability to reason and remember things, it's essential that we get the sleep needed. 8 hours is the basic average amount of sleep needed for all humans. This is what we need to be striving for in order to have proper function and proper awareness, etc. Though not always doable, and though the occasional mishap is not going to ruin you, it is an essential, vital part to practicing a full, well rounded lifestyle medicine approach to our lives, our cognitive function, to maintaining health of our mental and our physical.